The US says that Russia has asked China to provide military assistance for its war in Ukraine and that China has responded affirmatively. Both Moscow and Beijing have denied the allegation, with a Chinese spokesperson dismissing it as disinformation. The claims have generated conjecture over how far Beijing would be willing to go in backing its most important strategic partner, China. So what has set off this talk of Beijing extended a helping hand to Moscow? Following initial reports that Russia had asked China for military aid, unnamed US officials said that Washington had determined that China had sent a signal to Russia that Beijing would be willing to provide both military support for the campaign in Ukraine and financial backing to help stave off the impact of severe sanctions imposed by the West. At a meeting in Rome, the National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan warned senior Chinese foreign policy advisor Yang Jiechi against providing support, even as the Kremlin denied requesting military equipment. Now, the US is wary of China's intentions because the government of President Xi Jinping has refused to criticize the Russian invasion, even as it seeks to distance itself from Kremlin's war by calling for dialogue and reiterating its position that a nation's territory must be respected. Now, that brings us to the question, how is China willing to help Moscow? Experts say, if anything, smaller items such as bullets and meals are more likely than fighter jets and tanks. Drew Thompson, a former US Defense Department official, says China probably wants to avoid high-profile or big-ticket arms sales to Russia in the midst of a conflict which would expose Beijing to international sanctions. Beijing would be more willing to provide spare parts, consumables, ammunition, and dual-use items that don't contravene sanctions and could fall below the threshold of international reprisals. For example, Russian helicopters are likely using up their flares to counter portable short-range missiles like the Stinger. Now, China could conceivably sell Russia some of its flares if they are compatible with Russian systems. China might also share surveillance and intelligence. Now, given Washington's warnings, any Chinese aid would likely involve very basic stuff, such as ration packs for soldiers. Also, experts believe that Russia would find it virtually impossible to integrate Chinese armaments into its armed forces on such a short notice. But the question is, will China be open to alienating itself from the West, given how important Western markets are to its economy? While not impossible, experts say there are several factors working against it. For starters, it could look very bad. Shi Jinyong, an expert in international relations, says that China will be very careful, trying its best to avoid its aid and other assistance being used on battlefields of Ukraine. Experts say that there is no obvious upside for China in aiding Moscow, adding that a weakened Russia could work to China's strategic and economic advantage. Chinese officials have also said throughout the crisis that territorial integrity and sovereignty of all countries should be respected. Though critics say its refusal to criticize Russia's invasion is in fundamental contradiction to that position. Now, many believe that Russia's military operation in Ukraine has in nature become an invasion, and that China will never provide arms to help a country attack another sovereign country, and that is not in accordance with international law. China also does not want to see the conflict worsening, coming at a time as it does at the back